got quite a lot of comments in already this evening, and not just from Kerry either, and we certainly will focus on what Mick O'Dwyer meant to, I suppose, people outside of Kerry. But first, have a listen to this.
Oh my God, I don't believe there is anything that I love more than watching football. I'm addicted, totally addicted to the game. Sure, I'm mistook in the bloody thing for the last 70 odd years, so I'm afraid I'll keep at it down till I go into the grave.
Goodbye.
I saw you somebody.
You're good, eh? We could do with that fella today.
Oh, yes, you can see.
I miss days like today, though.
You would have gone.
I don't be stuck out in the middle of it.
Nothing to equal being out there. I'd like to be on the sideline watching or in the stand and drop dead. That's the way I'd like it to happen. I'd be quite happy if that happened. But not yet, I hope, for another while anyway.
Right now, it's Kerry attacking again. It is Mick O'Dwyer. Mick O'Dwyer with it now, shaking off Kerry Kearns, getting inside the shot. Algie's running to the ball and it's over the bar. The amazing Mick O'Dwyer.
Kerry's chief scorer today, Mick O'Dwyer. He's got the ball, he shoots, and where I go.
I packed everything I wanted to into the 82 years that I've spent in this planet. I've enjoyed every moment of it.
And oh, danger for Dublin there. The ball breaking loose on the wing. It's a goal! It's a goal by Johnny again.
I've done everything I wanted to do. I did it all and got great enjoyment out of it, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
And there goes the final whistle, and Kerry have done it. Kerry have won 4 All-Irelands in a row, and they truly are the kingdom of football.
I had a marvellous run, but wasn't I lucky to be born in Kerry?
There you go. Wasn't I lucky to be born in Kerry? I'd say a lot of people this evening, John Kennedy, are saying, wasn't he lucky that he, or weren't we lucky that he was born in Kerry? John Kennedy, we heard, I suppose, from so many different people over the last few days since the passing of Mick O, and I suppose a lot of people talking about maybe ill health before that as well, and I suppose remembering the cherished moments, I suppose, that we have. But the huge legacy that he has left in everybody's lives at different generations, as me as a supporter, other people as players, and the whole lot. Can you describe that, John? I mean, obviously it's tough for yourself because you lived more than your life with Mick O, being a player and seeing him, and then maybe later in life as well, while he was managing other teams, and you were obviously keeping abreast of that. But what did Mick O'Dwyer mean to you?
I suppose, first of all, Donal, very sad news Thursday morning when the news broke, even though he was declining, and it was a matter of how was Mick O when you'd meet and the lads of that, but reality came through on Thursday morning and cast a doom over the whole place, really. We'd be considered part of his extended family because, I suppose I grew up watching Kerry teams, and the O'Donoghue brothers, who were from Asti, were an integral part of that team, and Mick O'Connell, Mick O'Dwyer, and then in 84, the night of the league final, I was called into the Kerry panel. Huge honour to be brought in and to be in a dressing room with Mick O'Dwyer and those legends was absolutely, it was humbling, really, and it was an experience that I'll never forget, from being up on the terrace, and suddenly you're inside with arguably the greatest man of all times, the greatest trainer. His legacy, the players that played under him, that trained under him all over the country. There was a tremendous bond, but it's incredible since people that just knew him to salute him, maybe never spoke to him, but the effect he had on those people, it's incredible. But as a trainer, he set the standards. He was hugely respected. Whatever he asked guys to do, they did it. He was a player's man first and foremost. He was a footballing brain. He was ahead of his time. Some of the training was absolutely ferocious. And the football, somebody has said it a number of times during the week, he only used the whistle twice, half-time and full-time, and that was true, because you had to be prepared inside in Killarney or Tralee for the heat of battle in a Munster Championship in an All-Ireland series. And if you weren't able to take it inside there, well, you had no business going. And he was, from the media point of view, I remember in 84 as a young fella, he exposed us to the media. And he was. I quote him as saying several times, "If you can't speak in front of a microphone, what chance have you in Croke Park before a full house?" It was very simple, and there was nobody bigger than the team or the panel. And if anybody was going in that direction, he certainly clipped their wings. And while he was close to the players in one way, but there was a gap always between the players and himself. And I think that was good. It kept a freshness there, and but he was ruthless. If you weren't performing, whoever you were, you didn't start or you were taken off. And he kept the appetite. He kept the freshness, and he could see if a guy was struggling a little bit in training, he'd give him a night or two off to get the energy back up again. But he went to Manchester United. He learned about the training methods. He was his own man. He had fantastic people with him on the sideline, but Mick was the boss. No question or doubt about it. He was the boss. And I was quoted during the week as saying there was 4 or 5 PE teachers in that team, new methods of training and all that. He didn't discuss it. Mick was his own man. And his legacy will live on in all the counties he was in. Laois, Kildare, Wicklow and Clare, and several phone calls, since his passing. The respect, the effect he had. They didn't win all Irelands with him, but the improvement, the profile the game got, and it is continuing on since.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the word ruthlessness. He was ruthless. It's one of the words that I suppose doesn't jump out more often than not. But to get that level of success, you had to be ruthless. Was that something that was respected by the players? Was it like, these are Mick's rules, we understand what the rules are, and we're willing to run wire to wire all night long, and we're willing to go through the wall, as he said, Pat Spillane, go through a wall, finish, come back to the other side, and the whole lot. But was that something that kind of was a nice leadership in a way that players understood, and it kind of grows a better bond maybe, and maybe that's why we had so much success under him?
Absolutely. Nobody rested in their laurels, and the training was, as I said, the competition and training, the wire to wires, the laps, there was no such thing as waiting for a guy. Everyone for himself. If you had a jersey, you wanted to keep it. Mm-hmm. If you hadn't it, you wanted to get it. And when I say ruthless, I give an example. 1986, I was probably playing some great football myself, better than maybe 85, and had a good Munster final. Played Meath in the semi-final. I think it was about 9 minutes. I was beaten for 2 balls by Terry Ferguson. The next thing is I saw Mick calling me. And all of a sudden I was above in the stand. Did I respect him? Of course, disappointed, but we were back in training the following Tuesday night as if nothing had happened, because he did that for the betterment of the team. I wasn't performing, and everybody in the place, in the squad, knew if you didn't perform, there was guys to come in. Willie Maher came on the same day and he kicked 1-1, and Mick was justified. He hadn't to do it to be justified, but that's the way he was.
Your understanding. Liam, you're not as old as John, obviously.
No.
But like me and you, we were fans of that team.
Exactly,
I mean, we grew up, I suppose, watching the golden years on video and rewinding it the whole lot. And I suppose in many ways, I suppose Jack O'Shea and John Egan and Mikey Sheehy and Pat Spillane, all these fantastic players came together. They wouldn't have come together without a Mick O'Dwyer.
Yeah, Mick was the man that drove the bus. Mm-hmm. Like you said, I suppose our generation really grew up. We were the boys in the short pants going in Dinny Street, looking at the bus going down. He drove us on to wear the green and gold jersey. No, it was Mick was number one, and then you had the likes of John and all these fellas that we were looking up to, but Mick was at the helm. And the stories that we've been hearing in the last week are incredible. Like, some of them funny, some of them serious, but he was a man ahead of his time. The training methods, taking the players. He was a players' man, taking the players on holidays. He went against the GAA at that time with the Adidas gear, and it was just some of them are. And I had 2 dealings with him really up close in '98 against Kildare. I was playing that day. And he came into the dressing rooms after, and look, as a player, everything is flying over our head at that stage. But I genuinely remember him coming in, and he was disappointed. Even though they were after winning, but deep down, like I'd say, if we cut him, he'd bleed green and gold. So his speech, even though I can only remember a part of it, but when I look back at it, he was disappointed that he had to beat Kerry. He's county. My second occasion with him then was a funny one. I was doing umpire with Padraig O'Sullivan. He was in charge of Wicklow. They were playing Limerick in fines, and of course, typical Mick, like he was sizing up who the referee was, and he was a Kerry referee, and he was rubbing his hands. He came in, he shook all our hands inside after, but going out in the field, I'll always remember it. Obviously, someone told him who I was going out, and he roared over to me. He said, "Brosnan," he said, "you're too good to be done umpire." He said, "You should be reffing." But like in Miko's head, he was letting me know that if the ball was within a foot or two, that I'm a Kerry man in the sideline, and he knew who I was, So, but incredible, and look, the outpour all week, it just shows what kind of a man he was.
Yeah, a good umpire, better than a bad forward.
Exactly, yeah.
Pretty much. Come here, talk to us about 98, because obviously you lived that. I mean, obviously 97 won the All-Ireland, 98 Mick O'Rose with Kildare, and they had that fantastic, I suppose, Leinster campaign where they beat all before them, got in, beat Kerry, didn't get across the line against a very good Galway team as it was happening at the time. Was there a big disappointment in Kerry, or was there still kind of people feeling that Mick beat us, so it wasn't awful?
No, there was huge disappointment in Kerry. Always when you lose in Kerry, there's always disappointed. And I suppose in some circles, I suppose people would be happy that Mick was the fella that would have beaten us. But I have no doubt, and I can hold my hand up, that if Mick wasn't involved with that Kildare team, they wouldn't have beaten us. No, he brought these guys to a level that, just like the likes of John's teams, they'd do anything for him. And there was times in that game, and I just saw a couple of clips in the past week, where we were coming back into it. Kildare's fellas were doing stuff that there's no way that if you asked them now, they wouldn't have done it. You could see he had such power and such thing over him. The training they had done, Carl had a fantastic game that day as well. And the crowd, it was just, Croke Park was just a sea of white. I always remember running up to the field and saw not only white jerseys, but everything leading up to it. I suppose it was the Mick and Paddy show, and it was the master and the child, you could say, really. And look, Mick got the best of it. But I do, like I said, I do remember him coming into the dressing rooms, and he was disappointed that he had to beat the green and gold. Another
man you remember from that game was Glenn Ryan.
That's right, yeah.
A statement from Glenn Ryan tonight sent to us here as well. On behalf of all the players, and this of course is from the Kildare perspective, who had the honour of playing for Kildare during Mick's time in our county, would like to extend our sincere condolences to all the Dwyer family. Anyone who played in Mick's teams earned that right through hard work, what John Kennedy said. Absolute commitment to the jersey, and ultimately a love of Gaelic football instilled in us by Mick. He brought us from a very low position to almost reaching the pinnacle. He did so by changing the whole mindset of county, players, supporters and county board. His endearing personality brought all those strands together. The result of this were the most memorable, fantastic days that many of us had not seen previously or since. As players, Mick gave us belief. As supporters, he gave us hope. As a GA community, he gave us the opportunity to walk around with our heads held high. We will forever be grateful to Mick and his family for the time he spent in Kildare. We will never forget his contribution to a wonderful time for Lily White supporters and players, and he leaves a legacy that will continue to inspire Kildare players who pull on the white jersey. That's Glenn Ryan. Now, the one thing he didn't manage, Mick, on 98 was to get the Sam Maguire, but he did get the Sam Maguire previously, and lo and behold, sure, two South Kerry fellas, what would they do with the Sam Maguire? They'd forget it.
More than an hour before the start of the Senior All-Ireland football final between Munster champions Kerry and Connacht champions Galway, the gates of Croke Park were closed on a capacity crowd of nearly 86,000 people.
You would think you're in another world completely. Nervous, butterflies in the tummy, going out onto the pitch with the roaring of the crowd and all that. But it was a big occasion for me, coming from Waterville, being the first man ever from Waterville to play on any forum of a Kerry team. Something that I will always remember.
And Mick O'Dwyer added this neat point. The sound of the final whistle was only the starting signal for the jubilant celebrations which the confident Kerrymen had arranged before they even came to town.
Would you believe it, that everybody left the dressing room in Croke Park? The Sam Maguire cup left on the table there. The following morning, the cup was missing. I wonder would it be in under the Cusick stand in the dressing room? And there was the Sam Maguire sitting on the table. It was my job then to see after it from there. So we took it back by car. I can assure you it wouldn't happen today.
That's for sure. I suppose when we left out of Croke Park, even if we did win it today. And that, of course, there was a remarkable picture taken, I think it was taken by Padraig Kennedy of the Kerry's Eye, the late Padraig Kennedy, of Mick arriving into Waterville with the Sam Maguire strapped to the top of the I don't know what it was. It was a Morris Minor, what kind of car it was. He probably didn't drive cars that small, to be fair to him. He was actually quite a bit of a rally driver as well. But I mean, the amount of, I suppose, memories that he created, and we're trying to kind of relive that tonight as well, maybe in a happy way more than anything else. But after the break, we will dip into a little bit more, and we'll talk about his love of pet Spillane, John Kennedy. You weren't on the pet list, John, were you?
No, definitely not, Donal.
No. There was a pet list, was there?
Well, there was, yeah.
It was a short list, was it?
Pretty short, all right, then, yeah.
Yeah, and you were on Paddy's pet list, were you?
There was a short list too.
Good stuff. After the break, we'll talk about lists. Now you're very welcome back to Terrace Talk, of course, and we are remembering the late Mick O'Dwyer, a legend in a lot of people's eyes, not only, I suppose, as a manager, as a player, I suppose as a businessman as well, and certainly as a Waterville man as well. And it's gas how we went back to the funeral on Friday, and I suppose the amount of people that you see, John and Liam, that you know, and you kind of know them from different aspects of football matches, or some of them were players, some of them were managers, some of them were supporters, but dotted throughout the whole lot of it was an almighty amount of, I suppose, Waterville, South Kerry people who just, to them, he was Micko. Like, I mean, it didn't really matter whether he won too many All-Irelands or whatever he had. I mean, he was a businessman, he was well loved inside the community, and of course, the most fantastic story of all, of course, it's about his life. I was yapping to his two great friends, Paddy Fogarty down in Waterville, certainly one, and Eric Murphy as well. And Micko told this great story about his going to his first All-Ireland ever, and he went with Eric Murphy and went up in the Ghost train and the whole lot, and they got their tickets, and they cycled their bikes into Carsveen, got the train up. They, I don't know what, 10, 12 hours on a train, got out the next morning, walked way up, I suppose, Hill 16, watched the match, Kerry won. And from there, the love of football begins, I suppose, maybe in Micko's life, because he did tell a couple of fantastic stories that his father gave him the first ever football there was in Waterville, and in order for him to get a second ball, he used to charge the boys a penny or something to play a ball. He'd have 20 fellas on the field, and he had a second ball and a third ball. So obviously he had the entrepreneurial skill. And where I'm going with this is, from the very early days, John Kennedy, you mentioned about his training and his methods and the whole lot, but he respected players to get something out of it, and this leads on, of course, to the Benedict's washing machine ad and the whole lot. Were you in around that? I mean, you certainly would have been aware of it and the whole lot. Would you have a story on it?
I was there that time, Donal, and the thing about Micko is the players were number one, and I've said this down the years that, even since Micko, we never hear of any Kerry player giving out about getting expenses, getting gear, holidays, whatever. But Micko set that trend. And, the Adidas, the Bendix, if you were going on holidays, your trip was paid for, obviously, you got the few pound pocket money. That was all down to Micko. And that was before, he was before his time, really, because if you hadn't players, you hadn't a team. And if you hadn't a team, you couldn't compete. And but he was brilliant. But coming back to the Waterville, I think the one thing that he instilled in everybody was the pride where you came from. Never forget where you come from. He never forgot Waterville. He scaled the heights at the highest level. And he was a legend all over the country and beyond. But Waterville was his home. That's where he started. That's where he ended up. And I suppose it was fitting that the last team he managed was the under-14 team.
Yeah.
And he won a league, division, whatever, it didn't matter. But I actually met him in Kiel one night. There was a minor game, he was there, and the pride he had in Waterville that night, to see them out in the field, divisions don't matter. He said that it doesn't matter what division you're in, once you're competing, and the colour of the jersey. And that stuck with me, and it stuck with all the lads, I think, because you start in the club and you finish, and he instilled that pride in us. But players were number one. Hierarchy didn't matter. If he rubbed shoulders with him, if they didn't agree with him, that was tough luck, because he was looking after his team and he was giving them the best on and off the field.
Waterville Drummond, you'll have them all.
Waterville Drummond, yeah.
Waterville didn't win that on their own. Drummond helped them.
And I suppose, Donal, it is a tribute to the club and the people in the community for the way they carried out the show.
It was fantastic, wasn't it? I mean, when you get a moment like that, and you have huge crowds, and I suppose people wanting to come down, they're travelling from all over the place, it has to be run right. And the Waterville J came out, helped with other members of the community as well. But I mean, the amount of respect, and people were very good as well going into the funeral and the whole lot. I mean, it's a big family as well. The Dwyers, hugely known, not only I suppose in Waterville, but obviously in Kildare and Cork and the whole lot for what they've done as well throughout their lives as well. Liam, I suppose we're talking about Waterville and the pride of the club and the whole lot, but doesn't it kind of tell you that you can come from any part of Kerry, big club, small club, anything, and if you have the dream and a bit of drive and the whole lot, you can become.
Yeah, and that's why we always say it here, tradition. You know, the players at the moment that are wearing the Kerry jerseys, they're carrying the tradition on. There's youngsters looking up to them. You know, there's people looking up to Jack O'Connor and Eamon Fitzmaurice and all these down through the years. So it's just carries on. And like John said, it was Mick that started all this, really. You know, he started this with the professionalism and what I love hearing is the stories about what a player's manager he was back then that time. And another part of the story, was it 78, John? I think he said himself that himself and the chairman, they wanted him out.
Well, absolutely. I mean,
McKenna, Charles McKenna. Yeah. They wanted him out. Like, it's hard to believe. And that just shows that Kerry, we haven't changed much here of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he was on the back of a bad run there. Yeah. I mean, you won 75, 76, 77. They were blown out of it again and heading into 78. I mean, and I suppose Kerry managers change if you don't get results. They all kind of know that. But the one place he loved was Croke Park. And I suppose it's every player's dream to get to Croke Park. And we have a lovely clip here of him talking about Croke Park and one of his pits, John.
I loved every moment that I spent inside in this stadium. I'd only wish we could rewind the clock, but that's not possible. Oh, me Jim. I never sat down here on the sideline. I stood on the sideline with the programme in my right hand. That's all I ever did. Up and down the line, roaring and shouting. I have the sign of it today. But however, it was worth every bit of it. Biggest years of all that I spent here, and the greatest years I spent here was when we played Dublin. And there's nothing better for a county to come into Croke Park, take on the Dubs and play into the hill. There's a satisfaction in that.
This is Croke Park, the grounds where legends are made. And we're told by experts that the turf, the pitch itself, is in superb condition. And indeed, tomorrow's match has got all the promise of any of the great historic finals.
If you haven't got a ticket, live coverage from RTE begins at 1:20 tomorrow, with the big match at 3:15.
In 1975, I took over and I made up my mind that I was going to build a team with youth from the word go, a team that I would have for at least 10 to 12 years. You see all these young fellas, they wanted to get on this Kerry team and they worked ever so hard. We did 27 consecutive nights without a break and not one player missed a training session. It was an ambush. We caught Dublin on the hop that day. There's no doubt about that.
Dublin playing with the slightest breeze in this first half. Kerry with the green and gold stripe on the side of their necks. And oh, danger for Dublin there. The ball breaking loose on the wing. It's a goal! It's a goal by Johnny again.
Dublin, of course, had a great team. They were riding on the crest of a wave when we arrived. Nicky Ned won a ball around the middle of the field and he was flying through. He had passed about 3 Dublin players.
And here comes Kerry again. Mickey Sullivan goes racing through. Alan Larkin's in front of him. He's got past Alan Larkin. Penny Riley's after him. Georgie Wilson's after him. Everybody's after him. He's well and truly looked after now.
But I said to Mickey Ned, if I was playing full-back myself, I'd have done the very same thing. I think you should have released the ball quicker. He was concussed. He was taken away to hospital. Pat Spillane took over, 19, I think, at the time.
This is Pat Spillane. And they're going to the point for Kerry. Kerry coming back. And Dublin get a point. Back come Kerry. Young Pat Spillane.
Tremendous player. No end to him. He had great skill. Marvellous kicker of the ball. The same man to go through a brick wall for you.
And the game is over.
And Pat accepted the cup.
I only hope my captain, Mickey O'Sullivan, will have recovered to drink out of this cup tonight.
He certainly recovered. I don't know if he got a drink out of the cup, John, or not afterwards. They're wonderful moments, I suppose, and Liam is right. I mean, they're the moments that kind of as a young fella back then, you know, they didn't come around every day, Liam. I mean, obviously, there wasn't 15 matches to win the championship. You had your big outing against Cork, you had your semi-final, you were looking up maybe to see it on RT, you had your final, if you were looking up to get a ticket off, you went, and if you didn't, you had the homecoming, and that kind of circled your amount of football at the time. So even though they were heroes and they were spoken volumes, you didn't get to see them that much unless you probably went to a county championship match and they were mucking it out as good as they held. It's what's rare in those days, was that what made it wonderful? Because now, while people say there's no access to players, which there's no access to players in a sense, but you know, with the amount of media you see it and the papers and the whole lot, those are very cherished memories on a very rare occasion.
Yeah, and social media and everything, so they're in your face a lot now compared to back then. But it's just listening to that, the hairs in the back of our neck, because like we said, we were the guys down with short pencils looking up at these fellas coming down Denny Street, and just to see and they were superstars. No, they were superstars for us, and I think, look, Kerry will forever be grateful to Mick and to the fella beside me here as well. And what I like about him is and I spent a bit of time with Ambrose, and I know Mike and all of them, they're very assuming. No, they're not big-headed. They're not anything. If we could meet the bomber down the street, we could meet Ambrose, any of them. No, they're just, and I suppose that rubs off from Mick as well. That all these guys were never too big for their boots. No, so it's an amazing legacy.
The one thing that he mentioned there that is an abiding memory by me for Mick in nearly all the good photographs that were taken, Mick with the programme in his hand.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, was it a stress ball, John, or what was he doing? But I mean, at the end of the night, that programme was certainly mangled. But I mean, it was always something he had. I mean, he surely knew who they were playing. But what was it?
I'd say it was just, you know, he liked his. Different people have different things that they do. Mick had the programme, and you know that picture. If you close your eyes, you can see Mick with the programme in the left hand, and it twisted and turned, and the green jumper, and but you know, it's I suppose the opposition. We spoke about it during the week, and he never downgraded or paid, you know, made little of any opposition. He always spoke them up. That's where the roguishness came in. But on a serious note, he respected every player in the opposition. But he instilled a belief into, from my short time with them, and we started in 75, I came in 84, and it was a team of legends. But, you know, he made you feel that you were the best wing forward in the country at that particular time. And I remember one quick story about the 84 All-Ireland, the free-taking Mike, he was out injured, and it was one night in Killarney, who was going to kick the frees, and one or two, John, I think Jack or Bomber said John kicks him for the club. So he put down the ball about 45 yards out, he just threw it on the ground, a pair of runners, he kicked it straight over the bar. He said 'tis as simple as that. But he actually had a word in the year after, you know, and coming up to the final, it's the same as you're down your local field. It's the same as you're on the field at the back of the house. Forget the crowd. You just do what you do natural. And you know, he when you'd kick a few in training, he'd invariably be watching, and he'd come up, "You're on fire tonight." Sure, like you'd just feel 10 feet tall when Mick said that. And whether you were going well or you weren't, you believed you were, and you were always going to beat your man, because you're in the shape of your life. You were never fitter, and you were a lot faster than that fella. And like those words, I can hear him in my mind, and I can see him saying them. And he said that to every player that he was with. And that was the legacy he had. That belief, the confidence he put into you. And you know, when things were, I remember in Tralee, in my first game for Kerry in the championship in 84, quite enough first half in the dressing room, not saying too much. I had only been in the dressing room a few times, and he came up and he said, "That's the start now, John." He said, "'Tis time to start playing football now." As much as to say, that's your first 35, and now the time is to display it now and turn it on. And I always remember Jacko got a ball about 30 yards out early in the second half, could have kicked it over the bar with his eyes closed. He called me and he turned and he flicked it back, and I kicked it over the bar, and I kicked 6 points afterwards. And all he did after, just in he passing, he put up the thumb and he winked. You knew you had done something right.
There you go. Two so Kerry men. Two so Kerry men making our Kerry men look good, huh?
Yeah. But it's amazing, Donald, that with all the interviews that we've heard from the Wicklow boys, the Kildare boys, every one of them said that he made me 10 foot tall when I talked to him. And John said it there now again. So it's just the way he was doing.
Yeah, exceptional. Hi, Donal. I have wonderful childhood memories that will last for the rest of my life of that great Kerry team of the 70s and 80s with Mick O at the helm. In my eyes, he was the king. I was lucky enough to meet him a few times, and he was always took time to chat. A real gentleman. Rest in peace, Charles. Sadly, Kerry J lost a gentleman, a legend, Thursday in the late Mick O'Dwyer. God rest his soul. We were at his 80th birthday party. It doesn't seem too long ago now, to be fair, in the Sea Lodge in Waterville, and sympathy from all his family members, and that's Dermot and Margaret Ann below there in Two States. A couple of more coming in. We have loads of them, but I want to pick out the ones maybe tonight that tell a little bit of a story. Mary Hesland from Leitrim sends this in. So many fond memories of seeing Mick O play in Croke Park, and of later supporting that great Kerry team of the 70s and 80s. The green and gold of the Kingdom flag flying proudly in my Leitrim garden. Mick O brought unbridled and joy and pride to Kerry people over many years. His contribution to the J is unparalleled, and he'll never be forgotten. May he rest in peace. It's something that we tend to forget, isn't it, that there's Kerry people all over Ireland, and we kind of cherish those moments about the homecoming here, but there is Kerry flags up in Leitrim, and there's Kerry flags hanging off
all over the world, really,
all over the world.
Absolutely.
And you know, I suppose when you have the success, it goes up, and it is fantastic. But here's one from County Laois that we picked out as well. Ursula Kine in County Laois says, thank you for giving Laois people great times in 2003. I'm so glad my father, a proud Laois man, was alive and enjoyed it so much. My sincere sympathy to all his family and wider community who knew Mick O so well. Liam, that is something that I won't say get lost in the story, but obviously with our Kerry eyes and our Kerry sunglasses on, we look that way. But he had a huge impact outside of Kerry at a time when he could be playing golf or playing the accordion or running the bar, the whole lot. But his time in Laois, his time in Kildare, his time in Wicklow, what was the magic effect?
I suppose his love for football, number one, was the thing. But like that, it probably was disappointing for him that he had to leave Kerry and go to other counties. But like when Mick O, I can just imagine when the likes of Mick O came into a dressing room, like it was just these were guys that were just reading and stories and legend tales about Mick O and the great Kerry teams. And next thing he's coming in and he's managing, and he had success everywhere he went. You know, Laois, Kildare, even Wicklow. You know, so he just rose everything up a peg or two, and it was even just the Wicklow boys there that were on about it, how he was take the trainings around to different parts of the county, you know, to increase the I suppose the support and get an interest going. You know, small little things like that. And it just shows how far ahead he was. You know, always thinking.
I was talking to a good friend, a journalist in Wicklow over the weekend. We were sending texts and the whole lot, and he told me a story that when Wicklow got Mick O, nobody believed it. You know, he had done the job in Kildare, he had done the job in Laois, but even in Wicklow's eyes, they were big teams. You know, we think they were small teams, but in a Wicklow's perspective, they were huge teams. And the first night he arrived, he said there must have been 3,000 people inside the field waiting just to see Mick O arrive. And Mick O at the time, he put out kind of, if you were good enough to play for Wicklow, bring your boots. And he said there was 129 players, he said, from Wicklow turned up that night. He said
open trial.
Just an open trial, a good old-fashioned open trial, which is amazing to be fair. And to be fair, he spent 5 years in Wicklow. They won the Tommy Murphy Cup, and I suppose at the time that was the pre-runner to the Talton Cup now that people want to win in the whole lot. One before we take a break from Tom in Wexford, and it's another special story because I can see this happening an awful lot, something that doesn't happen anymore. He says, I have a beautiful treasured photo with Mick O in Austinstack Park in 1982 on holidays while I was in Killarney at the time. We went to watch the team train, the best team of all, managed by the best manager of all. It's something we talked about off air, how you were down on your holidays in the summertime, the gate was open, and lo and behold, where you came from didn't really matter. You could sit in the stand, watch them, and then come down after. That wouldn't happen now, would it?
No, and Donal, we spoke about affair, the crowds that came to training that time, incredible. And unfortunately, Mick O played to the crowd. Like, the bigger the crowd, the tougher the training was going to be.
You'd be hoping no one would come in.
You would have to put on something special for that crowd, like. But look, he was available, and he had the word with people, and it doesn't happen now because that accessibility is not there. times have changed, things have evolved, but look, he made people special, taking the photograph, having that word, and Mick O'Dwyer talking to you, to something you never forgot. People from other counties coming down.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Before we take the break, I have one more audio, and it talks about the exceptional bunch of men that he could gather, and it's about this Kerry team.
1982 was the year we lost the 5 in a row. We came back after to win 3 more in a row.
Still the bomber. It's high.
But we got a few players, and that was amazing. A little fresh injection of players made all the difference.
Oh, yes!
Maggie Sheehy dodging round 2 defenders. Lovely balance, brilliant skill and control. Ogie Moran. Now can Owen Liston finish off what has been a perfect move? He can.
I said inside in the dressing room, but we were going to win this All-Ireland today for one man, and that is Mick O'Dwyer. And I think it goes beyond any shadow of a doubt that he will go down in the folklore of football history.
That was a real good finish. Only for we losing the 2 in the middle there, we could have won 9 All-Irelands in a row. That was an exceptional bunch of men, the likes we won't see again, in my opinion.
There you go, John Kennedy, you played your part in those 3. Typical Miko, right? To forget that we were beaten in 82, we banished that. But had we won those 2, we'd have won 9. So obviously the talking up aspect, he was at it forever and ever. But the amount of captains that got to lift the Sam Maguire under his tutelage as well. I mean, and again, that was Tommy Doyle, of course, wasn't it?
Right, Tommy Doyle,
he's back at the end of it and the whole lot. Do you as a group kind of, I suppose, I know you send texts or WhatsApps or whole lot, but you must have had a lot of special memories of those times in this last week.
There's no doubt, Donal, and I suppose it's something maybe we fall down as a unit, that we don't meet up that often, individuals as we do, but that bond is still there, meeting up at the weekend. Not a lot said, because the mood was down, but great to meet guys, and we've all got old, I suppose, and in various different ways, but that spirit is there, and that pride in Miko, and being part of it, they're fantastic memories to have. And for everybody that was involved, however big or small the part was, you were involved in one of the great Gaelic football teams, led by one of the greats. Simple as that.
Absolutely. And of course we got to see 3 more All-Irelands, didn't we?
Exactly, yeah.
Were you wearing long pants at this stage?
No, I'd say it was in the short pants. We had better weather. I think the climate was a lot better that time.
Septembers were fine, weren't they?
Yeah.
Good stuff. We'll take a break. Now it's 6:44, heading towards 7 o'clock. Of course, the news and 7:30 this evening. Of course, stay with us because we have Kerry versus Cork in the under-20s. And just after 7 o'clock this evening, we'll talk to a good few members of the St. Paul's team as well, getting through there to the Super League final and the under-20 final as well. A couple more comments that I want to pick out and look for this evening. I mean, the amount of comments that we've got was absolutely massive, but as I said, we want to kind of maybe just kind of read out the ones that we wouldn't normally read out, and there was one that was picked up here from social media during the week, and it was Joe Stewart, of course, and he's blown Waterford, and it sums up a bit of a story about what Mick was like as well. He said, I was working in a hotel next to Fraher Field. Mick O'Dwyer drew a huge crowd in the National Football League. Kildare were playing Waterford. Kildare had booked their meal for over 40. We were super busy and forgot to set up 4 tables, so you can imagine now of 10 for Kildare. Mick came in, helped me rolled out 4 tables and set the cutlery in the tablecloth as well. Doesn't that kind of tell you, well, obviously he had the background in the hotel behind as well, but doesn't it tell you a lot that nothing was a huge problem? We'll just get on with it. You'd imagine in today's world, there'd be heads rolling, or there'd be some then again, you probably have a private room somewhere. Dennis, Kerry supporter here as well. Goodbye to the Prince of the Pigskin, greatest J person of all time, and he should be honoured outside of Waterville nationally by the J, and in Kerry named the airport after him, but at least Kerry J should now name Corns as the Mick O'Dwyer Centre of Excellence. Wouldn't it be fitting after all the training he did for the GAA? Yeah, certainly a big thought, and I'm sure, it's
there's a nice ring to that, isn't it?
It is,
Mick O'Dwyer Centre of Excellence, yeah.
Absolutely. So it'd have to be a lot of running though, John, would it?
Oh, it would have to be.
Is there wire to wire? I don't think there's any wires there, so there'll be no wire to wires.
Once Peter Twist puts up the wire, we can have it. Roy Curtis, of course, the newspaper columnist there, he's 2-time sports writer of the year. He says he watched endless Mick-O videos. He says, I'm married to a Laois woman, so I remember accurately affirming July 2003. But for me, he says, Wicklow at the bottom of the football's food chain. He says 127 players at the first training session, and he allowed them all to dream beautifully. I suppose that was Mick-O, really, wasn't it? He gave everybody a chance.
He did, yeah. And you know, even in Kerry, like your panel was never closed. He was a great man to bring in guys that showed up well in a county championship or in a divisional championship or whatever, in for training.
But it kept fellas on their toes.
Kept fellas on their toes, and the guys inside had to beat them.
How did fellas deal with that? I mean, obviously you're on the team, you've had 2, 3, 4 medals won, you're going well, you're pals with the rest of the team. Then all of a sudden, some guy out of the blue, because he, I don't know, scored 1-4 in a county championship game, he's sitting there beside you. How do the players react in that instance? I mean, are they going out giving him the extra belt to the shoulder?
Well,
that too.
You'll be welcomed, and Dwyer would urge that too. But I suppose that time, you know, the selectors, if there was a guy that showed up well, one of the selectors would turn up at the venue and he'd be seen. He wouldn't be hiding behind the dressing rooms or anything. He'd be there to look at another on a particular night. So you knew that when you were let off for the few weeks, county championship was on, the guys that showed up were definitely brought in. It really freshened things up, and that kept fellas on their toes. And you know, that's how the likes of myself and maybe Timmy Dowd and Willie Maher in particular in '84 were brought into the squad. It was through playing well with the club and the divisional teams, and you got your opportunity. And then when you were in, it was up to yourself.
Absolutely.
You never brought in Pat Healy, though, did you?
No, that's a great story.
That's a very good story, yeah. Just for the listeners, it's just
he had Kennedy on the bench or something like that. To retell the story there.
Just briefly, that Pat was after playing a very good North Kerry Championship match.
Apparently,
yeah. He scored 3-2 or 3-3 or something like that. But back, of course, to Kennelly's bar, and he was given the phone number. They were egging him on that he should be playing with Kerry, and he was given the phone number of Mick-O by another legend. And of course, he went out.
Name him, go on.
Tim Kennelly put him up to this, yeah.
Another rogue, I'd say.
And out he went, and he made the phone call to Mick-O, and Mick-O picked it up and played the game with him and the whole lot. And at the end, he basically told him that the next time Kerry are playing the war, that he'll give him a ring. So there was a bit of a rogue as well in Mick-O.
I love the way it's a funny story. It tells its time. He was in the hub, told the story, but he had to go out to make the phone call. For the young listeners, you know, people had to go out and make phone calls that time off the side of the ball. Maybe get the 10 pence or whatever it was. There's one here from Bunclody Community College, and it kind of sums up as well. He said, Mick-O was one of a kind. He was generously gave his time to come to our small school to present awards and give us inspiring speech to our students. He stayed for photographs and autographs afterwards, a true gent. It's another part of Mick-O's life, I suppose. Again, in Kerry, we weren't that open to the fact that when he was in these counties, it wasn't so much getting the football team right. He wanted to bring the supporters along with him, John, and he had to go into the schools and he had to say, well, look, I'm Mick O'Dwyer and whatever it was at the time. But he was rebuilding his legend. But not only that, he was giving a belief to these counties that they could do this as well.
There's no doubt, and I got it first hand in Clare. You know, some great friends I had over there. When Mick-O came in, he really lifted the profile. He got guys interested. He went around to the club games, and when Mick-O arrived, there was an aura about him, and he gave a belief. Guys wanted to play, they wanted to be involved, and you know, the success he had went before him, and that's why the whole profile, the effect he had, you know, whether it was going presenting medals, whether it was going giving a talk, whatever it was, a challenge game, the opening of a pitch, you know, Mick-O was arriving with his team and he was respected.
I was told earlier in the week by a South Kerry man that of all the medals he won, of all the cups he won, of everything that he won, all the trips around, the most important medal to him was one that he won in 1957. What was it?
South Kerry Championship.
South Kerry Championship, yeah, 1957. And I think it was the first one at the time. Let's talk through a bit of audio of what Waterville meant to him.
Did I ever think about leaving Waterville? I toured Australia and I toured the United States. I went around the world a couple of times, and I always wanted to get back to Kerry. The if I was travelling up the country and if I saw a football match on, I'd stop and have a look at it, even though I'd have no connection whatsoever with it. When I drive through the village of Waterville, I'll always call to the football field, drive in the gate and have a look. The very last team that I managed was an under-14 team here 2 years ago. I was 79. And we went on to win the league. So I said when that happened, the wheel has gone right around now. So that was the last team I managed. And unless they'll manage one up above, if there is football to be played there, we'll wait and see. Keep going now, keep going. It's, of course, old age. I always say the youth is wasted in the young. Because this is now, we should be able to move about, but that's the way with life. We all come into the world the same way, and guaranteed we'll all go out the same way.
There you go. You come in and you go out the same way, and I suppose it's the imprint. There was so much we could have spoke about Mick O'Dwyer tonight. We could have had 5 hours of it. 69 was a great year for him. He won Player of the Year. People seem to forget that he was that. He started off as a wing back. He ended up as a high scoring forward. He trained the Kerry under 21s to 3 in a row All Irelands as well. Something that we kind of forget about at times. 75, 76, 77. But considering what he was bringing through, I'd imagine he had the ammunition as well. Lost out in the 78 final, of course, on 21s. He managed the Railway Cup. 6 Railway Cups winning, and again, if you think about it, it's in the DNA. He obviously wanted Munster to do well. I mean, he brought in players from Watford and Tip and the whole lot, so he was always kind of spreading I suppose the love of it. But I'd say there was hardly a prouder moment though in 98 when I suppose Carol Dwyer, his son, I suppose in many ways, you know, he didn't make it within this county. Went to Kildare, had a huge impact on Kildare. Won an All-Star in 98. I mean, you don't win All-Stars too easily. The impact that he had his year. We didn't get really to dwell down the Tommy Murphy Cup. I mean, above in Wicklow. I mean, it was amazing. You mentioned Clare, of course. We were talking about, I suppose, 57 winning the whole thing, and then like at 79 years of age, where did you get the appetite, John Kennedy, to go out and train under 14s? I mean, there's a lot of fellas who are 34 years old at the moment and they can't train under 14 teams. But yet, is that the legendary side of it, or is it just the pure rogue Mick? He wants something to do in the evening?
Yeah, I think, look, his football was in his blood, as he said himself, and you know, the club meant everything to him. And can you imagine the effect that has on that team now? You know, I read during the week, I think it's 1 or 2 of those guys are captain or vice captain of Waterville at the moment. And can you imagine an under 14 Mick O'Dwyer coaching you and telling you what to do? I mean, at the highest level, but he's back where it all started, and that sums up the man. Where he's from, Kerry, Waterville, hugely important to him. Never forgot it, and that's Mick O'Dwyer. He never changed. He was humble, and Liam said it. Some of the greatest footballers that ever played the game are here in Kerry, and they'll speak to you as if they hadn't a medal. And that's I think that sums up the team. But that came from Mick, because Mick set that tone. And he was the same himself, and you know, he's the GA and Kerry, and obviously his family in Waterville. You know, he's a huge loss, and any of us that were involved with him in close up, you know, it's a void that's left. And while we might have met up for a long time, you know, he was still there. The advice he gave me during my time with the minors and stuff, you know, you'd get the phone call, the best of luck, and if you're lost, hard luck, we'll come again. And that summed up Mick O'Dwyer.
How important was that phone call when you didn't win?
Huge. It's easy, and I do it myself now. I realise what it is to be beaten. You know, it's very easy to make the call, well done, but it takes you know, a lot to make the call when you're beaten. And Mick made that call. He'd give it a day or two, no luck, but he'll come again, and he'd pick out the positives. There's a few great players in there, they'll be seen again, and you know, keep the head up and keep going. And that, whatever level you're at, it doesn't matter, but to get a phone call from a former manager that you respected was hugely significant. And I met Sean Boylan at the funeral the last day, another one of the greats. And you know, they so humble as well, but he just spoke about Mick, how many times he beat us, but he said he nearly felt guilty for beating you. That's the way he felt. And Sean started laughing to say, they beat us off the field. And Miko was saying, if ye did this or that, it could have been different. And, that summed him up. We'll miss him.
Yeah, absolutely. Liam, final thoughts for yourself?
Yeah, I think John has summed him up there. John had known a lot closer than what we would. But
the legacy he's going to leave behind. I mean, this week alone, there are so many people talking about Mick O. We're looking at the footage. We remember him as a fantastic player. There's young players out there looking at the godfather of Kerry J, I suppose, for another world. What impact will this have on?
Yeah, I think, look, and even my own lads at home who wouldn't have known Mick O'Dwyer, they've learned this week of what this man has done for the GA. We saw it over in the rugby, up in the big screen, running on a Gara, fair play to him.
Mick Galway sorted
Mick Galway, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he touched a lot of people, even though he mightn't have met a lot of people, but he touched a lot of people. And I think what he has done for Kerry and what he has done for Kerry football, it will never be surpassed. So I think as there's a kind of a saying there, when we're at our lowest, the GA is at its best, and I think that has been summed up in the last week with the Waterville below, the way they hosted the funeral and stuff like that. So look, he's going to be a huge loss, but I don't think he'll ever be forgotten.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the true Mick O'Dwyer fashion this evening, there's a match on the way home, guys. And as Mick O said, I'd stick my head in to see what's going on anyway. And of course, it's a big match because it's Kerry versus Cork in the under-20s. Listen, guys, I really enjoyed the show tonight. It was absolutely fantastic. John Kennedy, thanks for the secrets. You have better stories than that, John Kennedy, I'm nearly sure.
They'll be in the book.
They'll be in John Kennedy's book. John Kennedy and Mick O'Dwyer coming to a bookshop shortly. We'll take a break. Up after a break, we talk basketball.